Guy receives an urgent phone call from Derek, the wedding photographer, 1 month after his daughter Emily's wedding. Derek's voice trembles as he insists Guy come to his studio immediately without telling Emily anything. Guy's heart pounds as he drives across town, remembering how perfect the wedding seemed. His daughter married Brandon, a successful investment banker everyone admired. The ceremony was flawless, the reception was elegant, but now Derek's words echo in his mind. "Sir, I noticed something terrible in the photos." Guy parks outside the studio, hands shaking, dreading what he's about to discover. Into Derek's photography studio around 3 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon. The space was a converted warehouse in downtown Portland, all exposed brick and industrial lighting. Derek had shot hundreds of weddings over his 20-year career, and his work decorated the walls in elegant frames. But today, none of that beauty registered. Derek looked absolutely exhausted when he opened the door. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and at least 6 coffee cups cluttered his desk. "Guy, thank you for coming so quickly," Derek said, his voice strained. He locked the door behind me. That simple action made my stomach drop. Why would he need to lock us in? "What's going on, Derek? You sounded terrified on the phone." He led me to his workstation, a massive L-shaped desk dominated by 2 large monitors. Photography equipment filled every corner of the room. The smell of coffee and paper hung in the air. I was going through Emily's wedding photos. Derek began, pulling up his computer files. "I wanted to include some shots in my portfolio. Your daughter's wedding was beautiful, and I thought the lighting came out particularly well." He paused, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. But then I started noticing something odd. My chest tightened. Derek pulled up the first image. It showed the reception in full swing. The ballroom at the Columbia River Country Club looked magnificent. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead. 200 guests filled the space. And there, at a table near the dance floor, sat Brandon with his phone in his hand. "Okay," I said slowly. "Lots of people check their phones at weddings. That's not unusual." "That's what I thought at first," Derek replied. He clicked to the next photo. Brandon again. Phone out. Then another, and another. In photo after photo, my son-in-law had his phone in his hands, his attention focused on the screen instead of the celebration around him. "I went through all 643 photos I took that day," Derek said quietly. "In nearly every candid shot during the reception, Brandon is texting someone. Hes turned away from Emily. Hessen corners, Hessen hallways, during the cocktail hour, during dinner, during the toasts. Always on that phone. I felt something cold settle in my gut. I had paid $75,000 for Emily's wedding. Every detail had been perfect. The flowers alone cost $8,000. The band played until midnight. The prime rib was cooked to perfection. And throughout all of it, Brandon had been texting someone. "Derek, I appreciate you showing me this, but maybe he was handling work emergencies. As an investment banker, those guys are always on call." Derek shook his head. "That's what I hoped too. But then I found this." He pulled up a photo taken during the first dance. Emily looked radiant in her dress, a custom Vera Wang gown that cost $12,000. She gazed up at Brandon with absolute adoration. Brandon held her, but his eyes were distant, and in the background, a large decorative mirror reflected the dance floor. Derek zoomed in on the mirror's reflection. He had enhanced the image using professional photography software. The pixels sharpened until I could see Brandon's phone screen reflected in that mirror. Text messages. The resolution was not perfect, but it was readable. Affectionate messages to someone named Jay. Heart emojis. Phrases like "miss you" and "can't wait to see you." "The timestamp on this photo is 8:47 in the evening," Derek said, "right in the middle of their first dance. He was texting someone while dancing with your daughter on their wedding day." My vision blurred at the edges. I gripped the desk to steady myself. I remembered that moment. I had watched from my table, tears in my eyes, thinking about how my late wife Carol would have loved to see this. Emily had been so happy. She had planned every detail of that dance, chosen the perfect song, practiced the steps for weeks. Derek pulled up more photos. In one taken during the ceremony, Brandon's jacket pocket glowed faintly. His phone was on during his own wedding vows. Another photo showed him stepping outside during the cocktail hour. Phone pressed to his ear. His expression intimate and tender in a way I had never seen him look at Emily. I counted 37 instances of him on his phone during the reception alone, Derek said. I haven't even included the ceremony or the cocktail hour in that count. Guy, in 20 years of shooting weddings, I've never seen anything like this. I sank into Derek's spare office chair. My mind raced through the past 2 years. Emily had met Brandon at a charity fundraiser. He had swept her off her feet with his charm and confidence. He drove a BMW. He wore expensive suits. He talked about his investment portfolio and his corner office downtown. He called me sir and brought wine to family dinners. I had liked him. I had trusted him. Why are you showing me this? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Because Emily deserves to know the truth, Derek said simply. And because you're her father. I didn't feel right giving this information directly to her, but I couldn't stay silent either. I have a daughter myself. She's only 10, but if someone knew my future son-in-law was doing this, I'd want them to tell me. Derek handed me a USB drive. I've put copies of all the relevant photos on here, enhanced versions of the text messages where possible. I know this is devastating. I'm sorry. I took the drive with numb fingers. Does anyone else know about this? No one. Just you and me. I haven't even told my wife. I stood up, feeling about 100 years old instead of 67. Thank you, Derek. I mean that. This takes courage. He walked me to the door. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. I admitted. I need to think. I need more information before I destroy my daughter's life with this. Derek unlocked the door. If you need anything else, any other analysis of the photos, just call me. I walked out into the bright Portland afternoon. The sun felt wrong, too cheerful for the darkness spreading through my chest. I climbed into my truck and just sat there for a long moment, gripping the steering wheel. Then my phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Emily. Dad, I have amazing news. Brandon and I are buying a house. Can you co-sign the mortgage? We found the perfect place in Lake Oswego. It's $850,000. Brandon says with your credit score, we'll get the best rate. Please say yes. I'm so excited. I stared at the screen. My daughter wanted me to co-sign a mortgage for $850,000. To legally tie myself to a man who had spent his wedding day texting another woman. To put my financial security on the line for someone who might be cheating on Emily right now. 1 month into their marriage, the weight of that decision crushed the air from my lungs. I drove home in a daze, Derek's USB drive burning a hole in my pocket, my daughter's hopeful text message unanswered on my phone. I did not respond to Emily's text that night. I could not. Instead, I drove to my house in Beaverton, the same house where Carol and I had raised Emily. 3 years since Carol's death, and I still expected to see her in the kitchen when I walked through the door. The house felt emptier than usual as I uploaded Derek's photos to my computer. I spent hours studying those images. I created a timeline, marking every instance of Brandon on his phone. The pattern was unmistakable. During the cocktail hour, he had disappeared for exactly 23 minutes. I found photos of him walking toward the parking lot, phone pressed to his ear. His expression in those shots was intimate, almost tender. He smiled in a way I had never seen him smile at Emily. At 11 o'clock that night, I called my old friend Harold. We had worked together at the timber mill for 30 years before he retired from the Portland Police Bureau. Harold had been a detective for the last 15 of those years. If anyone could help me think through this situation, it was him. Guy, it's late. Everything okay? Harold's voice was alert despite the hour. I need your help with something. Can we meet for coffee tomorrow morning? Of course. The usual place. 7 o'clock. I'll be there. The next morning, I arrived at our regular diner on Burnside Street at 6:45. Harold was already in our usual booth, 2 cups of coffee steaming on the table. He took one look at my face and his expression turned serious. What happened? I pulled out printed copies of Derek's most damning photos. I spread them across the table and explained everything. Harold studied each image with his detective's eye, occasionally asking quiet questions. When I finished, he sat back and exhaled slowly. This is bad, Guy. I know. Have you talked to Emily? She texted me yesterday asking me to co-sign a mortgage for $850,000. She and Brandon want to buy a house in Lake Oswego. Harold's eyebrows shot up, and she texted you this after the photographer called you. She doesn't know about the photos. Derek called me quietly. Emily thinks everything is perfect. Harold drummed his fingers on the table, a habit he had when thinking through a case. You need a private investigator, someone who can dig deeper into this Brandon character. Find out who Jay is. See if this is an ongoing affair or something else. Can you recommend someone? Patricia Walsh. She used to be FBI, now runs her own investigation firm downtown. She's discreet and thorough. He'll text you her number. Harold, what if this is innocent? What if I'm about to blow up my daughter's marriage over nothing? Harold looked at me with sad, knowing eyes. Guy, I've been a cop for 35 years. I've seen a lot of cheaters, a lot of liars. Those text messages during the first dance, that's not work. That's not innocent. But you're right to want more information. Patricia can get you the truth. I met Patricia Walsh at her office later that same day. Her space occupied the 10th floor of a downtown building with a view of the Willamette River. Patricia was professional, maybe mid-40s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She listened to my story without interruption, occasionally taking notes. When I finished, she quoted me $3,000 for a comprehensive investigation. What does that include? I asked. Background check on Brandon. Social media analysis. Phone records if I can access them legally. Surveillance if necessary. It'll find out who Jay is and what the relationship entails. Should take about a week, maybe less. I wrote the check without hesitation. $3,000 was nothing compared to the $850,000. Emily wanted me to risk. Patricia called me that evening with her initial findings. Brandon's social media is very carefully curated, she said. His Instagram shows a perfect life with Emily. Beautiful couple photos, romantic captions, but his LinkedIn tells a different story. He lists frequent business trips to Seattle. 6 trips in the past 4 months alone. Did Emily mention these trips? No, I said slowly. She's never talked about him going to Seattle. That's interesting. I'll dig deeper. I should have more for you in 2 days. Those 2 days crawled by. Emily called me twice about the house. The sellers wanted an answer by Friday. They had another offer and would not wait. Brandon even got on the phone during the second call, charming and persuasive. Guy, I really appreciate you considering this. Brandon said smoothly. I know it's a big ask, but Emily and I have found the perfect starter home. Great neighborhood, excellent schools for when we have kids, and honestly, with your credit score, we can get a rate that's almost 2 points lower. It makes financial sense for everyone. He called me Guy now instead of Sir. That casual familiarity made my skin crawl, knowing what I knew. I need to review my finances, I said carefully. Give me until Friday evening. I'll have an answer for you then. Of course. Take your time, Brandon said, but I heard the edge of impatience in his voice. Emily came back on the line. Thanks, Dad. I know you'll make the right decision. I love you. I love you too, sweetheart, I said, my heart breaking. At 11 o'clock that night, my phone rang. Patricia's name flashed on the screen. Guy, I need to see you tomorrow morning. First thing, 9 o'clock at my office. What did you find? It's worse than we thought. Much worse. I'll explain everything tomorrow. I barely slept that night. I kept seeing Emily's face on her wedding day, glowing with happiness. I kept thinking about the $75,000 I had spent on that wedding, but mostly, I kept wondering what Patricia had discovered that made her voice sound so grim. Patricia's office felt different at 9 o'clock the next morning. Colder, somehow. She had a thick file folder waiting on her desk. The moment I sat down, she opened it and started laying out documents like a prosecutor presenting evidence. I traced the phone number associated with Jay. Patricia began. It belongs to Jordan Matthews. She's 26 years old and works at the same investment firm as Brandon, but in their Seattle branch. She slid a printed Instagram profile across the desk. The profile was private, but the profile picture showed a young woman with dark hair standing next to Brandon. They were at a restaurant, his arm around her shoulders. The photo's timestamp read 2 weeks before the wedding. Hotel records. Patricia continued, sliding more papers toward me. Brandon and Jordan have stayed together at the Monaco Hotel in Seattle 6 times in the past 8 months. Always the same suite, always charged to Brandon's personal credit card, not his company card. My hands trembled as I looked through the receipts. Dates jumped out at me. March 15th, April 7th, May 2nd, June 19th. The June 19th date hit me like a punch. That was 3 days before the wedding. Brandon had been with Jordan 3 days before marrying my daughter. There's more, Patricia said quietly. She showed me credit card statements, dinner at expensive Seattle restaurants, a purchase at Tiffany's for $6,000, dated April 3rd. That's a diamond bracelet. I verified the purchase with the store. Brandon bought it for Jordan. April 3rd, I said numbly. That was the day of Emily's bridal shower. He said he had to work. Patricia nodded grimly. Guy, I've been doing this work for 17 years. This isn't just an affair. This is calculated. Look at the timeline. She spread out a visual timeline she had created. Brandon meets Jordan 8 months ago. Starts the affair immediately. But he never breaks up with Emily. Instead, he proposes. Plans the wedding. Goes through with the ceremony. All while maintaining a full relationship with Jordan in Seattle. Why? I asked, though part of me already knew. Money, Patricia said bluntly. Brandon's financial situation isn't what it appears. He has credit card debt of $47,000. His student loans total $93,000. His investment portfolio? Almost empty. He cashed out most of it 6 months ago. The BMW? Leased. The fancy apartment? Also leased. And he's 3 months behind on rent. I felt sick. So Emily thinks she married a successful banker, but he's broke. Worse than broke. Has in debt and trying to hide it. That mortgage he wants you to co-sign, my guess is he's planning to use that money for something other than the house. Like what? Patricia pulled out another document. Plane tickets. I have a contact who can access certain travel bookings. Brandon purchased 2 one-way tickets to Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. Departure date is next Tuesday. 6 days from now. 2 tickets. Brandon Sullivan and Jordan Matthews. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of Patricia's desk. Hez planning to leave her. Hez going to take the mortgage money and run. That's my assessment. And here's the worst part. Patricia pulled out one final document. Brandon Sullivan isn't his only name. 4 years ago in Chicago, he went by Brett Sullivan. He was engaged to a woman named Amanda Fisher. Her family lost $30,000 when Brett suddenly disappeared right after they co-signed a business loan for him. Has done this before, multiple times, I suspect. Chicago is just the one I could verify. This is his pattern, Guy. Target a woman from a wealthy family. Gain their trust. Get access to family money. Then vanish with whatever he can grab. I sat in Patricia's office, feeling rage build inside me like I had not felt since Carol died. All those Sunday dinners, all those conversations where I had welcomed Brandon into our family. He had played me perfectly. He had played Emily even better. What do I do? I asked. That depends on what you want. We could take this to the police right now. Attempted fraud, identity theft, but prosecution takes time, and the evidence for prior acts is thin. Or we could confront him privately. Give him a chance to walk away. I want him destroyed, I said, surprised by the venom in my own voice. Patricia studied me carefully. I understand, but think about Emily. A public scandal will humiliate her. Her friends, her co-workers. Everyone will know she was conned. Is that what you want for her? I thought about my daughter, 29 years old, a third-grade teacher who believed in the goodness of people. She read to her students every day. She volunteered at animal shelters on weekends. She still watched Christmas movies in July because they made her happy. Brandon would break her, but a public trial would shatter her. I need to think, I said. Don't think too long. Hez planning to leave Tuesday. Today is Thursday. You have 5 days. I drove home in a fog. When I arrived, Emily's car sat in my driveway. My heart sank. She was waiting on the porch, holding a folder full of paint samples and floor plans. Dad! There you are. I've been calling you all morning. She bounced up, all excitement and energy. Look, I brought samples for the new house. We're thinking sage green for the kitchen and cream for the living room. What do you think? She spread the samples across my porch table. Her engagement ring caught the sunlight. $8,000 I had given Brandon to buy that ring, thinking he was investing in my daughter's future. Emily, we need to talk about the co-signing. I know. It's a lot to ask, but Dad, this house is perfect. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a big backyard. Brandon says we can start trying for a baby once we're settled. Can you imagine? You're going to be a grandpa. The joy in her voice cut me like a knife. She had no idea. No clue that her husband was planning to abandon her in 6 days with a massive debt and a broken heart. Let me see the mortgage documents, I said carefully. I want to review everything before I sign. Of course, Brandon has them all organized. Actually, why don't you come to dinner Friday night? We can go over everything together. I'll make Mom's pot roast. Your favorite. My throat tightened. Carol's pot roast. Emily had learned to make it perfectly, following her mother's recipe to the letter. Okay, Friday night, 7 o'clock. Perfect. Oh, Dad, thank you. Thank you so much. Brandon is going to be so happy. Has been working extra hours to save for the down payment. Extra hours. Right. Extra hours in Seattle with Jordan. Emily hugged me tight and drove away, leaving me standing on my porch with paint samples and murder in my heart. I called Patricia. Friday dinner, I said. I'm going to confront him then, but I want you there, hidden, recording everything. And I want Harold there too. Can you arrange it? Consider it done, Patricia said. Guy, are you sure about this? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I barely slept Wednesday night. My mind kept circling through scenarios, planning and replaying the upcoming confrontation. At 6 o'clock Thursday morning, I called Harold. I need your help with something, I said when he answered. Name it. I explained my plan for Friday dinner. Harold listened without interruption, then sighed heavily. Guy, this is risky. If Brandon's as calculated as Patricia says, he might get dangerous when cornered. That's why I need you there. You still carry, always. Harold paused. Let me talk to Patricia. Maybe we should involve the FBI. Mortgage fraud is federal. No, not yet. I want to give him a choice. Leave Emily quietly and face no charges, or I go public with everything and prosecute. Either way, he's out of her life. All right, he'll be there. But Guy, we do this my way. I set up the recording equipment. I control the situation if it goes sideways. Agreed. Harold and Patricia met me at my house Thursday afternoon. They swept the place for the best recording positions. Harold set up tiny cameras in the living room and dining room. Patricia placed voice-activated recording devices in 3 locations. We tested everything twice. Friday. You need to keep them here for at least 30 minutes before the confrontation, Patricia said. We need clear recordings of Brandon discussing the mortgage, making false statements about his finances. That strengthens the fraud case if we need it. I can do that. Patricia handed me a thick folder. This is everything I've compiled. Photos from the wedding, hotel receipts, the Chicago information, the plane tickets. When you're ready to show him, this is your evidence package. Thursday evening, I drove to Riverview Cemetery. Carol's grave sat under a maple tree, the stone simple and elegant. just like she had been. I sat on the grass and talked to her like I always did. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, Carol. Emily's going to be devastated. But that man is going to destroy her if I don't stop him. Hess going to take everything and leave her with debt and shame. The wind rustled through the maple leaves. I like to think that was Carol's way of answering. I wish you were here. You always knew what to do. You were always better with Emily than me. Remember when she was 16 and that boy broke her heart? You sat with her for 3 days straight. You made her laugh again. I don't know if I can do that this time. This is so much worse. I sat there until the cemetery closed, drawing strength from the memory of my wife's courage. Friday arrived gray and drizzly. Typical November weather in Portland. I spent the morning preparing Carol's pot roast recipe. 2 pounds of chuck roast, carrots, potatoes, onions. The smell filled the house, comforting and familiar. Harold and Patricia arrived at 6 o'clock. Well, be in your home office, Harold said. Recording equipment is live. We can hear everything. If anything goes wrong, I'm coming out. It won't go wrong, I said, with more confidence than I felt. At 6:45, I heard Emily's car in the driveway. I took a deep breath and opened the door before she could knock. She bounced in, radiant in a yellow sundress despite the cold rain. Dad, something smells amazing. She hugged me tight. Brandon followed her in, carrying a bottle of expensive red wine. He wore designer jeans and a cashmere sweater. His smile was wide and confident. Guy, good to see you. He shook my hand firmly. Thanks for having us over. I know you're going to love the house plans. We settled in the living room first. Emily chattered about her third graders, about the upcoming Thanksgiving break, about everything except what we were really there to discuss. Brandon played the perfect son-in-law, attentive and charming. He complimented my furniture. He asked about my health. He poured wine like he owned the place. Finally, over dinner, Brandon smoothly transitioned to the mortgage discussion. So, Guy, Emily mentioned you wanted to review the documents before co-signing. He pulled out a leather portfolio. I've got everything here. Purchase agreement, mortgage application, title insurance. It's all very straightforward. He spread the papers across my dining room table. Everything looked legitimate, professional. The house was real, listed with a reputable realtor. The mortgage terms seemed reasonable. The closing date was set for next Wednesday, one day after his flight to Mexico. Tell me about your finances, Brandon, I said carefully. Your income, your savings, your investment portfolio. If I'm co-signing, I need to understand your full financial picture. Brandon did not hesitate. The lies flowed smoothly. My base salary is $135,000 a year, plus bonuses that averaged $42,000 last year. I've got about $68,000 in savings and investments. My credit took a small hit from student loans, but I'm making double payments on those. Should be clear in 3 years. Every word was a lie. I knew about his $47,000 in credit card debt, his near-empty investment accounts, his rent arrears. What about these Seattle trips? I asked. Emily mentioned you travel there for work frequently. For the first time, I saw something flicker across Brandon's face. Wariness, maybe. But he recovered instantly. Seattle clients, high-net-worth individuals who prefer face-to-face meetings. I fly up, meet with them, fly back, usually just day trips. Another lie. The hotel receipts proved otherwise. Emily jumped in, smiling. Brandon works so hard. Sometimes he's gone overnight, but he always brings me back something nice. Last time, it was these earrings. She touched the small diamond studs in her ears. I wondered if those earrings were bought with the same credit card that purchased Jordan's $6,000 bracelet. Brandon was still talking, spinning his web of fiction. The house closing is scheduled for Wednesday at 10 in the morning. If you can meet us at the title company, we can sign all the papers together. Emily and I will handle the down payment, $42,500. We've been saving for 2 years. More lies. Patricia had confirmed he had barely $7,000 to his name. Wednesday, I said slowly. That's convenient timing. Brandon smiled. We're excited to get moved in before Thanksgiving. Start our new life in our new home. The words stuck in my throat, but I forced them out. Let me think about it over the weekend. I'll give you my answer Monday. Emily's face fell slightly, but Brandon squeezed her hand. That's fair, Guy. Take your time. This is a big decision. I was about to suggest dessert when my phone rang, loud in the quiet dining room. I glanced at the screen and felt my heart stop. The caller ID read Jordan Matthews. Brandon's face went chalk white. Emily looked confused. "Who's Jordan?" she asked innocently. I answered on speakerphone. "Hello?" A young woman's voice filled the room, trembling and emotional. "Mr. Guy? This is Jordan Matthews. I'm so sorry to call you like this. I didn't know what else to do. I've been dating Brandon for 9 months. He told me he was divorced. He said you were his ex-father-in-law and we were all on good terms. But yesterday I found wedding photos on his laptop. Hess married to your daughter. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." The room froze. Time seemed to stop. Emily stared at the phone, then at Brandon, her face transforming from confusion to dawning horror. Brandon shot to his feet, knocking over his wine glass. Red liquid spread across my white tablecloth like blood. "This is crazy. I don't know who this person is. Someone's trying to scam us." But his voice shook, his hands trembled. Jordan was crying now. "I need to talk to your daughter. Please. I didn't know he was married. He told me we were moving to Mexico together next Tuesday. He showed me plane tickets. He said we were starting a new life." Emily made a sound I had never heard before. A wounded animal noise, raw and broken. She looked at Brandon with betrayal written across every feature. "Brandon." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Who is Jordan?" Brandon opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The smooth charm had evaporated. He looked trapped, cornered, desperate. I stood up slowly and walked to the kitchen. I retrieved Patricia's evidence folder from where I had hidden it in the pantry. I walked back to the dining room and dropped it on the table in front of Brandon. Photographs spilled out. Hotel receipts, credit card statements, the Chicago documents, the plane tickets to Mexico. "Her name is Jordan Matthews," I said, my voice cold and hard. "She is 26 years old. She works with you in Seattle. You've been with her for 9 months. You stayed with her 3 days before your wedding. You bought her a diamond bracelet while Emily was at her bridal shower, and you were planning to leave my daughter next Tuesday with $850,000 of debt while you and Jordan disappeared to Mexico." Emily picked up the photos with shaking hands, wedding photos showing Brandon texting, hotel receipts with both names, the plane tickets. Each piece of evidence landed like a physical blow. "This isn't real," Emily whispered. "This can't be real." Brandon's mask cracked completely. His face hardened into something cold and calculating. The charming son-in-law vanished, replaced by someone I did not recognize. "Fine," he said flatly. "You want the truth?" "Yes, I'm with Jordan. Yes, I was planning to leave. Emily was useful. You were useful. Your money was the whole point. I never loved her. The wedding was the best con I ever ran. $75,000 for 1 day, and you people ate it up." Emily dropped the photos. Her whole body shook. She looked at me with such betrayal in her eyes. "You knew," she gasped. "How long have you known?" 4 days, I said. "I only found out 4 days ago. I wanted to be sure before I told you." She ran to the bathroom. I heard her being violently sick. Harold and Patricia emerged from my office. Brandon's eyes widened. "You recorded this," he snarled. Harold pulled back his jacket slightly, revealing his service weapon. "FBI Special Agent Patricia Walsh," Patricia said calmly. "Harold and I have been gathering evidence on your activities. Mortgage fraud is a federal crime, Mr. Sullivan. Or should I call you Mr. Brett Sullivan, like you used in Chicago?" Brandon's face twisted with rage. "You can't prove anything. This is entrapment." "Actually, we can prove quite a lot," Patricia said. "But that's not your biggest problem right now." There was a knock at my front door. Jordan Matthews stood on my porch. soaked from the rain. She was young, crying, clearly devastated. When she saw Brandon through the doorway, her face crumpled. "How could you lie to me?" she sobbed. "You told me you loved me. You told me we were building a life together." Emily emerged from the bathroom, pale and shaking. She and Jordan locked eyes across my living room. Two women, both betrayed by the same man. Brandon tried to push past Harold toward the door. Harold blocked him effortlessly. "Sit down, Mr. Sullivan." What happened next unfolded so quickly I barely processed it. Brandon pulled out his phone and made a call. He spoke rapidly to someone named Marcus. Within 5 minutes, 3 large men appeared at my door. They were intimidating, clearly not friendly. Brandon smirked. "You think I'm alone in this? I have partners. We've been running this operation across 5 states. You expose me. Marcus here ensures your daughter has an accident. You understand, Pop." Marcus stepped forward menacingly. Emily screamed. Jordan backed into a corner, terrified. But Harold calmly pulled back his jacket again, fully revealing his weapon this time. And Patricia opened her phone, showing a live video feed. "FBI agents are surrounding your house as we speak, Guy," Patricia said calmly. "I'm not a retired agent. I'm active, working organized crime. We've been investigating Brandon's fraud ring for 18 months. Your case gave us the final evidence we needed." Within seconds, FBI agents flooded through my doors and windows. Marcus and his associates were on the ground, handcuffed, before they could even react. Brandon lunged for my back door but was tackled by 2 agents. The chaos lasted maybe 3 minutes. Then my house was full of federal agents, and Brandon Sullivan was face down on my floor, being read his rights. The FBI processed the scene with practiced efficiency. More agents arrived. Crime scene tape went up around my property. Neighbors gathered on the street, watching the spectacle. My quiet house in Beaverton had become ground zero for a federal investigation. Emily sat on my couch, wrapped in a blanket, despite the heat inside. She had not stopped shaking. She stared at nothing, her eyes hollow and distant. Jordan sat in a chair across from her, also wrapped in a blanket. Both women looked broken. Patricia sat down between them. "I know you're both in shock. I'm sorry we couldn't warn you. We needed authentic reactions for the recording to hold up in court." "How long?" Emily's voice was barely audible. "How long have you been investigating him?" 18 months, Patricia said gently. "But we didn't know about you specifically until your father contacted me 4 days ago. That's when we realized we could use your situation to bring down the entire operation." "So, I was bait," Emily said hollowly. "No," I said firmly, kneeling in front of her. "You were a victim. We're trying to make sure no one else becomes one." Jordan spoke for the first time since entering the house. "I didn't know he was married." "I swear, he told me he was divorced. He showed me paperwork. It looked real. Forged," Patricia said. "Brandon is very good at creating false documents. We've found marriage certificates, divorce decrees, business licenses, all fake. Has been operating under multiple identities for at least 6 years. An FBI agent approached us with a tablet. 'Miss Emily, Miss Jordan, I need to take your statements. This is going to take several hours. Are you willing to cooperate?' Emily nodded numbly. Jordan did the same. Over the next 4 hours, the story emerged piece by piece. Patricia had been tracking a fraud ring operating across 5 states. They targeted daughters of wealthy families, researched them on social media, created fake identities, and executed long cons. Brandon was their star player. "We've identified 12 victims," Patricia explained as we sat in my dining room well past midnight. "Total losses exceed $1.2 million. Brandon and his crew researched victims carefully. They knew family net worth, credit scores, business holdings. They tailored each con to maximize the take." "How did you find them?" Harold asked. "A victim in California went to the FBI instead of local police. She had recorded phone conversations. That gave us our first solid evidence. We've been building the case ever since. But we needed someone willing to go on record, willing to testify. Most victims were too ashamed." Emily looked up at that. Ashamed? Why should we be ashamed? Has the criminal? Exactly, Patricia said. But that's not how victims usually feel. They blame themselves for being fooled. They hide the truth from family and friends. That shame is what allows men like Brandon to keep operating. Jordan was crying again. I helped him, she sobbed. In Seattle, I helped him research targets. I thought we were investigating investments. I didn't know he was targeting women. Oh, God. I'm an accomplice. Patricia shook her head. You're a victim too, Jordan. He manipulated you. Used you. You're not facing charges if you cooperate fully. Emily suddenly stood up. I need to see him. Absolutely not, I said immediately. Dad, I need to look him in the eye. I need to hear him admit what he did. Patricia considered this. Actually, that might help. If you're willing, Emily, a confrontation with Brandon could be useful. Seeing his victims face to face sometimes breaks their arrogance. They make admissions they wouldn't make to interrogators. Against my better judgment, we went to the FBI field office in downtown Portland. They had Brandon in an interrogation room, still handcuffed. When Emily and Jordan walked in, his expression flickered. Surprise, maybe, or fear. Emily, he started. Listen, I can explain. Explain what? Emily's voice was cold now. The shock was wearing off, replaced by anger. Explain how you used me? Explain how you were planning to steal from my father? Explain how you lied every single day of our marriage. Brandon's charm tried to resurface. It wasn't all lies. Some of it was real. Which part? Emily demanded. The wedding vows? The promises about children? The talks about growing old together? Which part of that was real? Brandon. He said nothing. Jordan stepped forward. You told me you loved me. You told me we were soulmates. You showed me engagement rings. Were you planning to marry me too? Or was I just another con? Brandon's face twisted with something ugly. Cornered, his true nature emerged fully. You were all marks. All of you. Emily was the rich girl playing teacher. Jordan was the naive kid who believed every word. You made it so easy. Emily, you practically threw your father's money at me. And you, Jordan, you were so desperate to be loved that you never questioned anything. The cruelty in his voice shocked even the FBI agents in the room, but Emily did not crumble. Instead, she straightened her spine. She looked at Jordan, then back at Brandon. You're right about one thing. I did trust easily. But that's not a weakness. That's called being a decent human being, something you know nothing about. She turned and walked out, head high. Jordan followed, and I felt something shift. My daughter was not broken. She was angry. And anger was so much better than despair. Back at my house at 3 a.m, Emily, Jordan, and I sat in my kitchen drinking coffee. None of us could sleep. I keep thinking about all the signs I missed, Emily said. The Seattle trips, the way he was always on his phone, how he never wanted to combine our bank accounts. He said he believed in financial independence. I thought that was progressive. He told me you were his business partner, Jordan said quietly. He said you were helping him with a real estate scheme. He made it sound like you were in on the con. I feel so stupid. You're not stupid, I said firmly. As a professional criminal, this is what he does. He studies people. He finds their vulnerabilities. He exploits them. That's not on you. Emily looked at me with red, swollen eyes. Dad, why didn't you tell me the moment you found out? Because I wanted to be absolutely sure before I broke your heart. And because I was scared. Scared of hurting you. Scared of being wrong. I'm sorry, Emily. Maybe I should have told you immediately. She reached across the table and took my hand. You were trying to protect me. I understand. Jordan stared into her coffee cup. What happens now? To me, I mean. I helped him, even if I didn't know what I was doing. You cooperate fully with the FBI, I said. You testify. You help them build their case. And then you rebuild your life. How? Jordan's voice broke. How do I trust anyone again? Emily surprised me by reaching over and taking Jordan's hand. We figure it out together, both of us. We're both victims. We can help each other heal. Jordan looked at Emily with such gratitude. Why are you being nice to me? I was with your husband. You didn't know he was my husband. He lied to you too. We're not enemies, Jordan. We're survivors. I watched my daughter comfort the other woman her husband had betrayed, and I realized Emily was stronger than I had ever given her credit for. She was not Carol, but she had her mother's strength in her own way. The sun was rising when Patricia called. Brandon made bail. My blood ran cold. What? How? $500,000. Posted by a lawyer we don't recognize. Guy, I think his organization has more resources than we realized. Has out. And men like him don't forget revenge. Emily overheard. Her face paled, but her voice stayed steady. What do? We fight back, I said. We make sure he goes to prison for a very long time. The news that Brandon had made bail hit us like cold water. We were exhausted, emotionally devastated, and now potentially in danger. Patricia called an emergency meeting at FBI headquarters at 8 o'clock that morning. The conference room was full of agents I had not met before. Patricia stood at the head of the table, looking grim. Brandon Sullivan was released at 6 this morning. Bail was posted by a law firm in San Francisco that specializes in defending white-collar criminals. We believe his organization has significant resources. They want him silent and protected. What does that mean for us? I asked. It means we're concerned about witness intimidation or retaliation. We can offer protective custody to Emily and Jordan. No, Emily said immediately. Both Patricia and I turned to look at her. I'm not hiding. I'm not giving him that power. Emily, be reasonable. I started. Dad, I've been thinking all night. Brandon wins if I hide. He wins if I'm too ashamed or scared to tell the truth. I won't let him win. Jordan nodded slowly. I agree. Running feels like admitting defeat. Patricia studied both women. If you're staying visible, you need to be smart. No going anywhere alone. Keep your phones on. Alert us to anything suspicious. Well, have agents checking on you regularly. I want to go public, Emily said. The room went silent. Emily, that's a big decision, Patricia said carefully. Once you go public, you can't take it back. Everyone will know. Good, Emily said with fierce determination. Let everyone know. Let other women know what to look for. Let them see that shame belongs to the predator, not the victim. I looked at my daughter with new eyes. 24 hours ago, she had been a trusting, happy newlywed. Now she was planning to take on a criminal organization with nothing but truth as her weapon. I know a victim's rights attorney, Patricia said slowly. Her name is Sarah Morrison. She specializes in fraud cases. If you're serious about this, Emily, you should talk to her. 2 days later, Emily gave an interview to a local news station. I sat off camera, watching her face on the monitor. She was calm, composed, and brutally honest. My name is Emily Wright. 1 month ago, I married a man I thought I knew. His name is Brandon Sullivan, and he's a professional con artist. He targeted me because my father has money. He planned to steal from my family and disappear with another woman he was manipulating. I'm telling this story because I refuse to be ashamed. I did nothing wrong. I trusted someone. That's not a crime. What Brandon did is a crime. The interview was powerful. Emily did not cry. She did not hide. She looked directly into the camera and told the truth. The segment aired on the 10 o'clock news and was picked up by national media within hours. My phone exploded with calls. Friends, family, even reporters. Emily's interview had gone viral. Social media lit up with support and with the inevitable cruel comments. But the overwhelming response was positive. Other women started coming forward with similar stories. A woman in Sacramento called the FBI to report a man matching Brandon's description who had conned her out of $43,000 2 years ago. A woman in Las Vegas described an identical scheme. By the end of the week, 7 more victims had been identified. Jordan followed Emily's lead and gave her own interview. She explained how she had been manipulated and recruited without understanding the true nature of Brandon's operation. Her testimony provided crucial details about how the fraud ring operated. They researched targets on social media, Jordan explained to the camera. They know your job, your family, your interests before they ever approach you. They create fake backgrounds that match what you're looking for. If you want a businessman, they're a businessman. If you want an artist, they're an artist. Everything is calculated. The interviews sparked a movement. Women across the country started sharing their stories of romance fraud. Emily and Jordan became unexpected advocates. They appeared on morning talk shows. They spoke at victim support groups. They worked with lawmakers to strengthen fraud protection laws. I watched all of this with a mixture of pride and concern. Emily was healing by helping others, but she was also exhausting herself. She barely slept. She answered every call and email from potential victims. She testified at preliminary hearings. She pushed herself relentlessly. Emily, you need to rest. I told her one evening as she worked at my kitchen table, responding to victim emails. I can't, Dad. There are so many women who went through this. They need to know they're not alone. You can't save everyone, sweetheart. She looked up at me with Carol's determination in her eyes. Maybe not, but I can try. The legal process moved forward. Brandon's trial was scheduled for 6 months out. The prosecution had overwhelming evidence. Recordings from my house, financial documents, testimony from multiple victims. Sarah Morrison worked with Emily and Jordan to prepare their statements, but Brandon was not going down quietly. His lawyers filed motion after motion, trying to suppress evidence. They claimed entrapment. They questioned the legality of the FBI's investigation. They tried to paint Emily and Jordan as willing participants in a relationship gone wrong. The media coverage intensified. Some outlets portrayed Emily sympathetically. Others questioned why she had not seen the signs. The cruel voices on social media multiplied. Emily's teaching job became difficult as parents gossiped about her marriage. One afternoon, 3 months after the arrest, Emily came to my house in tears. They're saying I was stupid. They're saying I deserved it. They're saying I should have known better. I held my daughter while she cried. People are cruel, Emily, but the people who matter know the truth. Do they? Sometimes I wonder if I was stupid. How did I not see it? How did I miss all those signs? Because you trusted someone you loved. That's not stupid. That's human. Jordan had similar struggles. She lost her job in Seattle when the publicity became too much for her employer. She moved to Portland permanently, staying in a small apartment and working part-time at a nonprofit helping fraud victims. She and Emily had become genuine friends. Bound by shared trauma, the trial date approached. Brandon remained free on bail, living in a house his lawyers had secured. He was required to wear an ankle monitor, but otherwise moved freely. Sometimes I saw him around Portland. Once, we locked eyes across a parking lot. He smirked at me. That smirk haunted me for days. 2 weeks before the trial, someone vandalized Emily's car, slashed tires, keyed paint, broken windows. The message was clear. Keep quiet or face consequences. Emily reported it to the FBI, but she did not back down. They're trying to scare me, she told Patricia. It's not working. The FBI increased security. Agents watched Emily's apartment and my house. They monitored Jordan's movements. The organization behind Brandon was getting desperate. Then, 5 days before the trial, Brandon's ankle monitor went offline. He had cut it and disappeared. The FBI issued a warrant. U.S. Marshals joined the search. For 3 days, no one could find him. Emily and Jordan stayed at my house, terrified. Harold moved in temporarily, armed and alert. We barely slept, jumping at every sound. On the 3rd day, Brandon was caught trying to cross into Mexico near San Diego. He had fake IDs, $73,000 in cash, and a burner phone with contacts to his organization. His capture made national news. The trial proceeded as scheduled. I sat in that courtroom every single day, watching Brandon's lawyers try to discredit Emily and Jordan. They called Emily naive. They suggested Jordan was a willing accomplice who only turned on Brandon when he chose Emily. They painted Brandon as a flawed man who made mistakes, not a calculating predator. But the evidence was overwhelming. Hotel receipts, recordings from my house, financial documents, testimony from 12 victims across 5 states. The jury deliberated for 3 hours, guilty on all 17 counts. Brandon showed no emotion when the verdict was read, but I saw his hands clench briefly. That small crack in his composure was satisfying. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. The judge was a woman in her 60s who had clearly seen enough in her career. She looked at Brandon with unconcealed disgust. "Mr. Sullivan, you have caused immeasurable harm to numerous women and their families. You have shown no remorse, no recognition of the devastation you've inflicted. You treated human beings as marks, as opportunities for profit. The court sentences you to 25 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole. 25 years. Brandon would be in his 60s when he got out, if he lasted that long." Emily sat beside me in the courtroom, gripping my hand. When the sentence was announced, she exhaled slowly. Jordan cried quietly on her other side. Justice had been served, but the victory felt hollow. The trauma remained. The scars would take years to heal. The months following Brandon's conviction passed in a strange blur. The media attention slowly faded. Life tried to return to normal, but normal had been redefined. Emily moved back into her apartment, though she came to my house for dinner twice a week. Jordan stayed in Portland, building a new life far from Seattle and the memories there. The FBI's investigation continued beyond Brandon. His organization included 7 other men running similar cons across multiple states. One by one, they were arrested, tried, and convicted. The fraud ring collapsed. Asset forfeiture recovered significant amounts of stolen money. I received a check for $71,000, most of what I had spent on the wedding. The FBI had seized Brandon's assets and distributed them among victims. I immediately split the money between Emily and Jordan. Both women protested, but I insisted. "Use it for a fresh start," I told them. "Both of you. That money was stolen through lies. Let it become something good." Emily used her portion as a down payment on a small house in southeast Portland. Not Lake Oswego, nothing grand. A modest 2-bedroom bungalow with a garden. She planted flowers that first spring, getting dirt under her fingernails, finding peace in growth and renewal. Jordan took her share and enrolled in a victim advocacy program at Portland State University. She wanted to become a licensed counselor specializing in fraud victims. "I understand what they're going through," she explained. "Maybe I can help them heal faster than I did." The two women's friendship deepened. They co-founded a support group for romance fraud victims that met twice monthly at a community center in Northeast Portland. The first meeting had 4 attendees. Within 6 months, they regularly had 20 people sharing stories, supporting each other, learning to trust again. Emily surprised everyone, including herself, by becoming a powerful public speaker. She gave presentations at schools, teaching young people to recognize manipulation. She spoke at conferences about the psychology of fraud. She testified before the Oregon legislature in support of stronger consumer protection laws. 9 months after the trial, Emily's law passed. The legislation increased penalties for romance fraud, required dating apps to implement better verification systems, and provided funding for victim support services. Emily stood beside the governor at the signing ceremony. I watched from the audience, bursting with pride. Derek, the photographer who had started everything, became part of our extended circle. He photographed Emily and Jordan's advocacy events pro bono. He documented the support group meetings, creating a visual record of healing. His work appeared in a gallery show titled Survival, raising money for fraud victim services. Harold and Patricia, who had worked the case together, started dating seriously. No one was more surprised than them. "I'm too old for romance." Harold complained to me over beers one evening, but his eyes lit up when Patricia walked into the room. They got engaged a year after Brandon's conviction. The celebration was small and genuine, held at my house with Emily, Jordan, Derek, and a few close friends. We toasted to second chances and unexpected joy. Emily moved through her own healing process more slowly. She attended therapy every week. She processed the betrayal, the manipulation, the violation of her trust. Some days were harder than others. Some nights she called me crying, overwhelmed by memories or triggered by something innocuous. "Will I ever trust anyone again?" she asked me one difficult evening. "Yes," I said with certainty. "Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next month, but you will, because you're Carol's daughter, and she never let pain make her bitter." Slowly, carefully, Emily started dating again 2 years after the divorce was finalized. She met David at a professional development workshop for teachers. He taught 5th grade at another school in the district. Their first date was coffee. Their second date was a walk through Forest Park. Everything moved at a pace Emily controlled. David was patient, kind, and transparent. He gave Emily access to his social media, his finances, his history without being asked. "I know your story," he told her on their third date. "I know what happened. I'm not Brandon. I'll prove it every day if I have to." Jordan found her own path to healing through education and service. She graduated from her counseling program with honors. She started working at a nonprofit that helped fraud victims navigate legal and financial recovery. She was brilliant at her job, understanding exactly what her clients needed because she had walked that same path. She met her girlfriend, Amanda, at a victims' rights conference in Seattle. Amanda was a lawyer specializing in identity theft cases. They bonded over shared commitment to justice. Their relationship grew slowly, built on complete honesty and shared purpose. 3 years after Brandon's conviction, I hosted a special dinner at my house. Emily brought David. Jordan brought Amanda. Derek came with prints from a new photography project. Harold and Patricia arrived engaged and planning their wedding. Sarah Morrison, the attorney, joined us. So did 2 FBI agents who had worked the case and become friends. We gathered around my dining table, the same table where everything had fallen apart 3 years earlier. But tonight, the energy was completely different. There was laughter. There was joy. There was the comfortable warmth of people who had survived something terrible together and come out stronger. After dinner, Emily stood and raised her glass. "I want to make a toast," she said. Everyone quieted. 3 years ago, my world ended in this room. I learned that the man I married was a lie. I learned that everything I believed about my marriage was fiction. It was the worst night of my life. She paused, looking around at the faces gathered there. But that night also gave me something unexpected. It gave me truth. It gave me strength I didn't know I had. It gave me Jordan, who's become like a sister. It gave me purpose. I've helped 63 women through our support group. Jordan has counseled hundreds more through her work. Together, we've turned betrayal into purpose. We've turned pain into power. We've turned victimhood into advocacy. Emily's eyes found mine. "Dad, you saved me. Derek, you had the courage to tell the truth. Patricia and Harold, you brought justice. David and Amanda, you showed us we could trust again. We didn't just survive. We transformed. We built something beautiful from something broken." She raised her glass higher. "Harry's to second chances. Harry's to truth. Harry's to the family we choose and the strength we find in each other." We drank to that. Around the table, there were tears and smiles and the profound connection of shared survival. Later that night, after everyone had left, Emily helped me clean up. We worked in comfortable silence, washing dishes and putting away leftovers. "Are you happy, Emily?" I asked. She considered the question seriously. "Yes," she said finally. "Not in the way I expected to be. Not in the innocent way I was before, but am happy in a deeper way. I know who I am now. I know my strength. I know my worth. Brandon tried to destroy me, but instead, he showed me what I'm capable of. Your mother would be so proud of you." Emily smiled, tears in her eyes. "I talk to her sometimes, at her grave. I tell her about the support group, about David, about everything. I like to think she's watching." "She is," I said with certainty. and Shay's in awe of the woman you've become. That night, alone in my house, I sat in my favorite chair and reflected on the past 3 years. I thought about Derek's phone call that had started everything. I thought about the choice I had made to investigate rather than confront immediately. I thought about the pain of watching Emily's world shatter. But mostly, I thought about the resilience of the human spirit. Emily had been broken but not destroyed. Jordan had been manipulated but not defeated. Together, they had created something meaningful from their trauma. They had prevented other women from suffering the same fate. They had changed laws, changed systems, changed lives. I opened my journal, the one Carol had given me years ago, and wrote, I learned that love means vigilance without paranoia, trust with wisdom, and faith in people's ability to heal. I learned that my daughter is stronger than I ever imagined. I learned that strangers can become family, and that terrible events can reveal the best in humanity. Most importantly, I learned that justice isn't something that happens to us. It's something we create together through courage, truth, and unwavering support for each other. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. But when they show you who you can become through adversity, believe in that even more. I looked at the photos on my mantle. The wedding photo was long gone. In its place was a picture Derek had taken at tonight's dinner. Everyone was laughing, genuine and free. Emily was radiant, healed, powerful. Jordan was smiling, peaceful, home. This photo represented not a beginning, but a becoming. Not innocence lost, but wisdom gained. Not an ending, but a transformation. 4 years after Brandon's conviction, Emily and David got engaged. The proposal was simple and perfect. No grand gestures. Just David, in Emily's garden, asking if she would build a life with him. Emily said yes. The wedding was nothing like her first one. 50 guests instead of 200. A garden ceremony instead of a country club. Simple flowers instead of elaborate arrangements. But it was real. Every moment was genuine. Every smile was earned. I walked Emily down the aisle again. This time, there were no doubts, no hidden phones, no secret texts. Just my daughter, radiant and certain, marrying a good man who had proven his character over 2 years of patient courtship. At the reception, Jordan gave a toast. Emily is the strongest person I know. She took the worst betrayal and turned it into a movement. She helped dozens of women find their voices. She changed laws. She changed lives. And she never let pain make her bitter. Emily, you taught me that surviving isn't enough. We have to transform. Thank you for showing me how. Later, Emily found me sitting alone, watching the celebration. She sat beside me, still in her wedding dress. Thank you, Dad, for everything, for believing Derek, for investigating instead of looking away, for being there through all the dark days, for never giving up on me. You never needed me to give up on you, Emily. You were always strong enough. I just helped you see it. She leaned her head on my shoulder, the way she had when she was small. I'm happy, Dad. Really, truly happy. Not naive happiness this time. Earned happiness. The kind that comes from surviving and choosing joy anyway. I kissed the top of her head. That's the best kind. Brandon served his sentence at a federal prison in California. I never visited him. Emily never spoke his name if she could help it. He became a cautionary tale. A case study in fraud psychology. A footnote in our lives, rather than a chapter. 5 years after his conviction, Emily and David had their first child. A daughter they named Carol, after her grandmother. I held my granddaughter in the same house where everything had fallen apart, and I marveled at how life finds a way to heal. Jordan was there the day Carol was born, as close to family as anyone. She and Amanda had gotten married the year before in a small ceremony on the Oregon coast. They talked about adopting children themselves someday. The support group continued to grow. Emily and Jordan trained new facilitators to help with the expanding membership. Their organization partnered with law enforcement agencies across the country to create better fraud reporting systems. They consulted on legislation in 3 other states. Derek's photography series on fraud survivors won awards and traveled to galleries nationwide. He donated all proceeds to victim services organizations. His work put faces to statistics, showing the human cost of romance fraud and the possibility of recovery. Harold and Patricia got married in a ceremony officiated by a judge they both respected. They bought a house in North Portland and adopted 2 rescue dogs. Harold joked that retirement was busier than working. He volunteered with youth programs, teaching kids about recognizing manipulation and making good choices. I watched all of this unfold with gratitude and wonder. That phone call from Derek had felt like the end of the world, but it had actually been a beginning. A painful, necessary beginning that led to justice, healing, and profound transformation. On Carol's first birthday, we gathered again at my house for a celebration. The living room was full of balloons and laughter. Little Carol tottered between adults, delighted by the attention. Emily glowed with the confidence of a woman who had survived the worst and built something beautiful anyway. I looked around at the people filling my home. Family, not all by blood, but all by choice. People bound together by shared trauma and the decision to create meaning from pain. Emily caught my eye across the room and smiled. No words were needed. We both understood that the journey from that terrible night to this joyful day had been worth every painful step. That evening, after everyone left, I stood in my backyard watching the sunset. Portland's sky blazed orange and pink. I thought about Derek's decision to make that phone call. One person's conscience changing everything. One person refusing to look away from uncomfortable truth. I thought about how easily things could have gone differently if Derek had stayed silent. If I had ignored his warning. If Emily had signed those mortgage papers before the truth came out. Brandon would have destroyed multiple lives and moved on to his next target. But Derek spoke up, and that made all the difference. The next week, I visited Carol's grave as I did every Sunday. I sat under the maple tree and talked to her about our granddaughter, about Emily's strength, about the family we had built from broken pieces. You would love her, Carol. She's so much like you. Strong, kind, determined to make the world better. She took the worst thing that could happen and turned it into purpose. She's helped so many people, made such a difference. The wind rustled the maple leaves, and I imagined Carol's pride. I miss you every day, but am grateful for what you taught, Emily. How to be strong without being hard. How to trust without being naive. How to love without losing yourself. Those lessons saved her. I placed flowers on her grave and drove home, feeling at peace. 7 years after Brandon's conviction, Emily published a book about her experience. Not a memoir focused on pain, but a guidebook for survivors. Practical advice on recognizing fraud, protecting yourself, rebuilding after betrayal. Jordan wrote a chapter on the psychology of manipulation. Sarah Morrison contributed legal guidance. The book became a resource for victim advocates nationwide. Emily did a book tour, speaking at libraries and bookstores. At every event, women approached her with their own stories. Some were years into recovery. Some were just beginning. All of them found hope in Emily's journey. I attended one of her readings in Portland. The bookstore was packed. Emily stood at the podium, confident and poised, sharing wisdom earned through suffering. Surviving is not enough, she told the audience. We have to transform. We have to take our pain and make it meaningful. That's how we beat the people who tried to break us. Not by forgetting what happened, but by using it to prevent others from suffering the same way. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Brandon remained in prison, largely forgotten except by his victims and the law enforcement professionals who studied his methods. He gave one interview to a criminal psychology researcher, showing no remorse and describing his cons with clinical detachment. The interview reinforced everything we already knew about him. He was a predator, incapable of genuine human connection. Emily refused to read the interview. I don't need to understand him anymore, she said. I understand myself. That's what matters. 10 years after that terrible phone call from Derek, I hosted another dinner. This time we celebrated the 10th anniversary of Emily and Jordan's support group. Over the decade, they had helped more than 300 women. Some attendees had become facilitators themselves. Some had gone on to careers in victim advocacy. All had found healing and purpose. Emily's children, Carol and her younger brother Daniel, played in my backyard during the celebration. Jordan's adopted daughter, Sophie, ran with them. The sound of children's laughter filled the space where so much pain had once lived. As the sun set on that beautiful summer evening, I gathered everyone for a toast. 10 years ago, Derek made a phone call that changed everything. His courage started a chain reaction that led to justice, healing, and this incredible community. We've turned betrayal into purpose. We've turned pain into power. We've shown that the worst moments don't have to define us. They can refine us. Here's to the next 10 years. Here's to continued healing. Here's to the family we choose and the strength we share. We raised our glasses together. Survivors and supporters, family by choice and bond. That night, I wrote the final entry in my journal about Brandon's betrayal and its aftermath. Evil exists in the world. People like Brandon will always look for victims, but courage also exists. Conscience exists, community exists, and those forces are stronger than any con artist. We survived, we transformed, we thrived, and we created something beautiful from something broken. That is the greatest victory. I closed the journal and put it away. The story was over. The healing would continue, but the worst was behind us. Emily was happy. Jordan was thriving. Justice had been served, and a community of survivors supported each other through the ongoing journey of recovery. Derek's phone call had changed everything, just as his words promised, but not in the way I feared. Yes, it revealed betrayal and pain, but it also revealed strength, courage, and the profound resilience of the human spirit. It showed me that my daughter was stronger than I ever imagined. It taught me that family is not just about blood, but about who stands with you when everything falls apart. Most importantly, it taught me that one person speaking truth can change the world. Derek could have stayed silent. He could have minded his own business, but he chose to act. And that choice saved my daughter from financial ruin and potentially years more of manipulation. Now, sitting in my favorite chair in my quiet house, I felt profound gratitude. For Derek's conscience, for Harold's friendship, for Patricia's dedication, for Jordan's courage, for Emily's strength, for David's patience, for the granddaughter named after my late wife, for second chances and earned happiness, and the beautiful complexity of lives rebuilt from wreckage. The photographer called me with disturbing news about the wedding photos. But what those photos revealed, and the journey that followed, showed me the very best of humanity. People who refuse to look away from truth, people who stand with victims, people who transform pain into purpose, people who choose courage over comfort. And I learned that sometimes the worst phone call of your life can lead to the greatest blessings. Not immediately, not without pain, but eventually, if you're willing to face hard truths and do the difficult work of healing, beauty can emerge from ashes. That is the lesson I carry with me. That is what I would tell anyone facing similar betrayal. The pain is real, the healing is slow, but transformation is possible. And on the other side of survival lies not just recovery, but purpose, meaning, and joy earned through the hardest of trials. 10 years later, I stand by every choice I made, believing Derek, investigating quietly, protecting Emily from public humiliation while gathering evidence, setting the trap that exposed Brandon completely. All of it was worth it to save my daughter and prevent him from hurting others. The photographer called me with disturbing news, but what he showed me changed everything for the better. It ended a marriage built on lies. It started a journey toward truth, and it created a community of survivors who refused to let their worst moments define them. That is a story worth telling, and I hope it helps someone else facing similar darkness to know that light is possible, healing is real, and strength can be found in the most unlikely places. Now, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice to protect someone you love, even knowing it would cause them pain? How did you find the courage to act? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need to hear that survival and transformation are possible. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it brings you comfort, strength, or wisdom in your own journey. May you find courage in difficult moments, and may you always be surrounded by people who speak truth and stand by you when everything falls apart. Take care of yourselves and each other.